Alright lads, welcome back to the channel. This video wouldn't be possible without the help of my YouTube members, so a big thank you to all the lads currently on the screen. In the early 1960s, Soviet engineers faced a serious problem. Gone were the days of the Centurion and the M46. With the new generation of American M60 and British Chieftain, the old Soviet T-55s and T-10s simply couldn't slice through the newer NATO armour. So the Soviets launched a wave of experimental programs. Bigger guns, faster shells, even some guided missiles. And out of that race for penetration power came one of the most extreme tank destroyers ever built, the Object 120, codenamed Taran. Armed with a colossal 152mm M69 rifled gun, which stretched over 9 meters long, making it the longest barrel ever mounted on a fully enclosed fighting vehicle. As you can imagine, with a barrel so long, the armour-piercing round it fired left the muzzle at over 1,700 meters per second, giving it insane penetration for the time, even at ranges exceeding 2 kilometers. With 22 rounds of pure overkill and somewhat decent mobility, it outgunned every foreign tank destroyer of its time, yet it never reached the battlefield. While some could argue this was due to the complete lack of any protection on this vehicle, but the truth is that the Soviets developed the 115mm and then the 125mm smoothbore guns, both of which had similar levels of penetration, but could be fitted into a much smaller, more protected vehicle, which is how we get the T-62 and then the T-64 and its later variants. So if the Soviets themselves decided not to pick up this vehicle, then why should you? Well, if you'd like to know more about this tank and whether it's worth your hard-earned money, stick around for the rest of the video. Alright lads, welcome back. The Object 120 currently sits at battle rating 8.0 in the 5th rank of the Soviet tech tree. This of course is a premium vehicle and is only available to be purchased on a pack on the Gaijin store. For the cost of about $50 or £40 sterling, you get the tank, 15 days of premium time, as well as 2,000 golden eagles. Due to being a rank 5 premium, you can grind all of the Soviet vehicles between the ranks of 1 and 6. So you can grind everything from those pre-World War II light tanks all the way up until the early variants of the T-64 and the T-72, making it a pretty versatile little grinder. The Object 120 also shares rank 5 with 2 other pretty highly rated premium tanks, the IS-6, the old terror of matchmaking, as well as the T-055, which is the new terror of matchmaking. But more on those 2 vehicles in the conclusion. With all the basics looked at, let's now take a look at the firepower. We then come on to the standout feature of this tank, which is of course the firepower. And as I said in the introduction, this tank is armed with the 152mm M69 rifled gun. While we do have big guns in most of the tech trees at the minute, those are mainly basically like dirt guns with very low muzzle velocity, making it incredibly hard to aim them at medium to long range. That is not a problem with the M69, with even the traditionally slow and draggy high explosive shell still moving at 960 meters per second. That's only 40 meters per second slower than the armor-piercing round of a Tiger II. This gives you by far the strongest gun at the battle rating, at least in terms of kinematic performance. But as we'll see, the absence of several fire control systems really does hamper your ability to utilise this firepower. The first kind of an issue is a lack of a gun stabiliser. Now on many maps where you have long open-sighted killing fields, this isn't too much of an issue. After all, this is a tank destroyer. The problem comes with that a lot of War Thunder's map at the minute, and especially in the current rotation, do tend to be the highly urban style maps, which I personally don't really like. And in those types of matches, this really isn't a great vehicle. It's not suited for urban warfare, as you can imagine. And unfortunately, we can only ban one map from rotation, not several, as I'd like. The other issue, in my opinion, is the lack of a rangefinder. While quite a lot of vehicles around this battle rating do get a laser rangefinder, the Object 120 doesn't even get the coincidence rangefinder that you find on things like the M60 for example. Basically, when you hit the rangefinder button, it basically gives you an estimate, and anything over 800 meters kind of just doesn't even register. But I am being a little bit negative here, so let's cover some of the positives. And the first positive kind of negates the lack of a rangefinder, and that is the incredibly high velocity of your ammunition. As I said, the high explosive shell can travel at 960 meters per second, and it even contains 5.9 kilos of TNT, allowing you to penetrate 49mm of armor. You also have a heater fast shell, which can travel slightly faster at 1000 meters per second, but can penetrate 480 meters of armor. And finally, in our ammunition top trumps card game, we have the 152mm SAKO round, travelling at a whopping 1750 meters per second, and capable of penetrating 405mm of armor at point blank range. This is certainly very impressive, and on those matches where you do get a long open killing field like Sands of Sinai or Maginot Line for example, you really can hold down a choke point single-handedly with this gun. The Turan also uses an auto-loader, which gives you a constant 10-second reload. This is below average for the battle rating, but I've never found it to be that much of a hindrance, as you should be playing this vehicle as a second line unit, not really trying to use it for brawling. This could be considered a downside, especially compared to the two other rank 5 premiums, the IS-6 and the TO-55, which very much are get up all in the enemy's face and blow everyone out the water, and the Object 120 just really isn't. The Turan also lacks any sort of night fighting optics, lacking both infrared and thermal vision, but to be fair, you barely ever get night battles anymore in War Thunder, especially at the lower battle rating like 8.0. So this is basically a non-issue. A slight criticism that I would have is the fairly low power optional zoom of 7 times. Given this tank is mainly a long range sniper, 7 times zoom isn't particularly amazing, but the default zoom of 3.5 times is very good in my opinion, and gives you a very nice wide field of view. The tank also has 5 degrees of gun depression, which isn't great but it's not terrible, as well as 15 degrees of gun elevation. The turret rotation speed can be maxed out at 20 degrees per second, which again isn't terrible, but it's a lot better than you'd expect, and especially again if you're playing this in a second line position, you shouldn't really be getting killed due to a lack of turret rotation speed. Overall though, I'd say that the firepower of the Object 120 is pretty good. It's just let down by the lack of a stabilizer and the poor range finding capabilities. But I've had tremendous fun over the last couple of weeks using the HE round exclusively, just bopping people tryharding in the XM246, as well as all the Gepards as usual. And even if you yourself try to try hard, you've still got that fantastic SAKO and Heater Fest round. We then come on to the survivability, or lack thereof. This segment is going to be short, as the thickest part of this tank's armour is actually the gun barrel at 40mm thick. The crew compartment, or surrounding that, is only 30mm in thickness, with most of the rear and sides of the turret dropping down to only 15mm of thickness. As you'd imagine, this means that all the Gepards and all the other blatantly overpowered SPAAs at this battle rating are absolutely going to ruin your day if you get on the bad side. But again, this is second line unit, it's not supposed to be running head first into enemies. Another issue is that if an enemy round does manage to penetrate your turret, you've basically got like 20 pieces of ammunition just chilling there right in the ammunition bustle. And yeah, if your ammunition gets hit, your crew are essentially going to get turned into the first Soviet air fryer. One other thing about the survivability, and this isn't really to do with the tank itself but more just the actual sheer size of the vehicle. It's actually pretty big, which means you can't really stick your gun out from around a corner without someone hitting you first, if you know what I mean. This is an issue because your engine and transmission are in the front of the vehicle, so if you do get shot in the front, you'll basically just have to sit there with no armour, which yeah, leads to you dying quite a lot if you do try to push in this vehicle. But as we've already said, this is a second line unit and isn't really suitable for being aggressive in. Just like the survivability section, the mobility section is going to be equally as brief. The Object 120 is surprisingly mobile though, but due to that lack of armour, I wouldn't really recommend trying to exploit it. You don't really want to be trying to compete with light vehicles at the start of a game, because they generally will have a massive advantage over you. But it can be used for getting to positions like a strong point at the beginning of a match. These are quite few and far between though, because with that gun depression of only 5 degrees, it's not like you can exploit areas that other tanks can't, so there's nowhere you can go in this vehicle that is going to surprise people. But compared to most of the Soviet tanks around this battle rating, it is actually pretty good in terms of its top speed as well as its reverse. For example, we can go backwards at a speed of 15.3 km per hour, which does give you some flexibility when cresting a ridgeline, and we can also reach a top speed of 64 km per hour as well, making it a pretty decent tank overall when it comes to actually getting around the battlefield. We then come on to the lineups. Does the Object 120 have any great vehicles backing it up at battle rating 8.0? Well, at 8.0, not really. While you do have the fantastic BMP-1 as well as the 906, most of the vehicles around this battle rating tend to be battle rating 8.3. If you are lucky enough to own the TO55, then this is a great premium to add to the 8.0 lineup, but again, more on that tank in the conclusion. I would say though that you easily can up tier the Object 120 if you are thinking of building like an 8.3 or an 8.7 lineup. The Object 120 will still be useful at that battle rating, but of course there is a huge shift in the pace of gameplay at battle rating 9.3 with all the light tank spam, where the Object 120 really isn't going to do too well. So in terms of lineups, the Object 120 is pretty bad, to be honest. It's one of the major criticisms of the vehicle. There's just not really any great vehicles around you. The T54s are pretty trash in the current meta at 8.0 and 7.7. And the upgraded T55s with their stabilizers are battle rating 8.3. And if you're looking at playing battle rating 8.3 and upwards, well, there are some other premiums that you may as well invest in. So boys, welcome to the conclusion, the place where I aim to answer 3 important questions. Is the vehicle fun to play? Is it worth grinding out the tech tree in this vehicle? And most importantly, is it worth your hard-earned cash? Well, I've had immense amount of fun this last couple of weeks playing the Object 120, ammo racking people with that incredibly high velocity HE shell, travelling at just under 1000 meters per second. You can aim for weak spots like commanders cupolas and sides of turrets and stuff like that, easily ammo racking most opponents around the battle rating, especially satisfying if it's a tryhard using an SBAA. But while I've had a lot of fun using this vehicle, I can certainly say that it is not worth buying this tank as a grinder, so I would not recommend this tank for the average player. This is because there's too many variables that can just absolutely ruin a game for you. First of all is going to be the map. If you're on a tight urban city map, there's basically nothing you can do to exploit the advantages that your tank has. And to be honest, you're better spawning into something more suited for close quarters fighting. The second issue is the lack of a suitable lineup in my opinion. 8.0 for the Soviets is rather meagre unless you have the TO55 in your lineup, which I do believe is probably going to go to battle rating 8.3 in the future. And without a doubt, the TO55 is just the better all-round choice for most premium players. It's got a stabilised gun, it's got a hard-hitting 100mm cannon, as well as a reliable and damage-dealing sabot round. While the battle ratings between 7.7 and 9.3 used to be the golden area of War Thunder, you just had loads of cool Cold War vehicles without the try-hard nature of 9.7 and above. That has pretty much collapsed in the last year or so with the addition of all the SBAAs and the absolutely insane APHE damage output. So I'll be honest, grinding at battle rating 8.3, 8.0 is not actually that fun anymore. Because of this, I'd actually recommend going slightly up in battle rating, maybe the T55AM at 9.0. And while I can't bring myself to recommend people buy the BMD-4M, that thing is literally just busted. It is still a reliable vehicle, especially if you know the maps. But even things like the T80UD, the T72AV terms, solid, reliable grinders, not really going to go up in battle rating. But yeah lads, there's nothing much more to say. It's a great little vehicle for having some fun, but it's absolutely terrible for grinding. Well boys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Also be sure to leave a comment letting me know what vehicle you would like to see me review next. And as always, I'd like again to say a big thank you to my YouTube members who help me with production of these videos. So a massive thank you to Lola Alphonse, Tans, Deboa LX, Schlunty, Van Halen, Diogenes, Pumpin, Econ and Minami Productions. Thank you once again lads, and if you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave a comment saying Taran.